SESI, uma iniciativa da CNI, Confederação Nacional da Indústria, apresenta...
An innovative school is something to get us really thinking about our future and something that will really get us motivated so that we actually have fun learning and have fun doing all these amazing projects that help us learn so much.
I think this school is different because we're a project-based learning school, so it's a lot of hands-on learning and just being able to discuss and interact with your other classmates. And I feel like sometimes at other schools you don't get to interact as much with your other students, and you kind of just stay in your cliques, your group of friends. And so I feel like this school really gives us the chance to explore and get to talk to everyone, so we kind of get to know everyone in our class.
Other schools are more into test taking and reading from a book, while ours is more interactions and projects and working with our community.
You feel more free at what you can do, and you feel more capable of what you can do. And the other schools, I don't think you have that much freedom.
If you're new, everyone's like, oh, what's your name? They want to know about you, and they want to be your friend, and they want you to feel like you're a part of the school and the community. They don't want anyone to feel left out. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the best parts about the school.
Our school is located in Chula Vista, California, which is in South San Diego County. We're located about 8 miles from the US-Mexico border. Our students come from all across San Diego. It's a zip code-based lottery, and so essentially the way it works is that there's a certain number of slots that are apportioned to each of the zip codes based on the US Census. And so we try to make sure that it's proportionate in terms of how many students we draw from each zip code based on the census. And it's a computerized based lottery, so we don't really look at previous academics, we don't look at behavior. It's completely done by the computer so that we don't have any influence over that here. We started as one campus in Point Loma, which is our central San Diego campus. We there have 3 high schools, 2 middle schools, and 2 elementary schools. And then we have one campus in the northern counties of San Diego and one in the South Bay. We are a public school, and so all of our funding comes to us through the state and through the federal government. We actually operate on a leaner budget than regular public schools because we don't receive funding for our facilities, so everything comes out of our operating budget. Charter schools are just like public schools, except that in terms of our funding scheme, but I think what's different is that we have a 5-year charter that needs to be renewed every 5 years. So we make certain commitments in terms of what it is that we're going to be doing for our student population and results that we want to see. And we have to be able to present evidence of that every 5 years in order for us to stay open. But in exchange for that charter, we are able to get a lot more autonomy and freedom from the bureaucracy and be able to have a lot more flexibility in the way that we hire teachers and support teachers, in the way that the curriculum that we teach. And so I think there's some different trade-offs there in terms of being a charter.
The building was built in 2011, and we were LEED Platinum certified, which in the US means we have sort of the highest level of sustainability in our design. We think of our building as a learning tool for our students, and so we want them to learn about sustainability, and so we've sort of designed it into the school. We have solar panels on the roof that are feeding the energy grid here in Chula Vista. We have a community garden. We have lots of sustainable design features that we try to incorporate into the project work that our students do.
When we have circles every now and then, we try to put something in the middle to kind of represent where we're at. Today, we're putting our sugar snap peas, our seedlings. Started these as organic seeds. in our tray, and now you can see we have all these beautiful babies growing. Why do you think I would put this in the middle? What does this represent for us?
We are like all connected with each other, and those are too.
Yeah.
So our school day goes from 8:30 to 3:30, and then we have an extended program, optional for students who want to stay until 6 o'clock. It's a free after-school program, so students who want to do rowing or they want to do debate, they can stay till 6.
We don't have physical education in the same way that traditional schools do. So we try to make sure that at least a quarter to a third of our X blocks are physical activities.
I think what makes our schedule a little bit different is that in a traditional public school, students are rotating through many different classes, maybe 6 or even 7 classes over the course of the day. And so there's a little bit more flexibility with that time, because even though they have 2-hour humanities, 2 hours science, let's say the teachers want to open their wall and teach together, they could have 4 hours together as an entire team. Or maybe they're going on a field experience that day. Because of that flexibility, they're able to play with the schedule, and so can change up the schedule from day to day depending on the needs of the project. Our high-tech high is known for innovative education, and in particular for project-based learning. And at the core of project-based learning is really the idea of learning by doing. We don't want our students just memorizing information and spitting it back out on our test. We really want them to apply what it is that they're learning and to create work that they're going to be proud of for years to come.
Right now, you guys should be making your checklists because I want to come around and see this. And then you guys can get started. I've got X-Acto knives with new blades up here. We've also got the glue. Please use a paper cup. Other items you need. Rulers. Oh, more rulers. I'll get you more rulers. What else?
So High-Tech High is founded on 4 core design principles. The first of those is common intellectual mission. We bring students together from all different walks of life, and we really want them collaborating together under the same roof.
Vamos a ser limpios, sin, pero tampoco le quita, o sea, siento que se ve más completo.
I think it looks cleaner without the centerpiece.
But I also feel like it does make sense, but it feels more complete when you have it as that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We don't separate out students on the basis of perceived ability. For us, we believe that there are multiple ways of being smart and multiple ways of contributing to our society. We really want our students coming together and collaborating and realizing their full potential, no matter who they are and what skills they bring to the table. So the second design principle is adult world connection. And what we mean by that design principle is really having our students realize that there's a larger world outside that their work can really connect to. And it's giving our students opportunities to really step into the shoes of professionals, as well as doing field experiences in the world, and then making sure that their work has an authentic purpose and an authentic audience.
How you're feeling, 1 through 10. You can share about your weekend, or you can remain mysterious as normal.
I'm like a 10. Yesterday I had a really good day. I went to Imperial Beach with my friends, and yeah, we just walked around. We didn't go on the beach because it was really cold.
The third design principle is personalization, and that's the idea that we want every student who walks through our doors to be known well. That's why we have the small teaching teams where students are seeing a few core teachers that really know them, and also having our advisory system, which allows our students to have an advocate who knows them for all 4 years that they're here.
We could have, actually could have the map over there, like in front of the dry erase. So like if this is the wall right back there, the table could be here. And Andre and whoever is sitting there, and then the people sit here, and then we have like a map. That whole wall back there could be information about our process.
Okay.
And then finally, our last design principle, which is teacher as designer, is really around giving our teachers the intellectual autonomy to be able to design their projects from scratch and to be able to design their day-to-day experiences.
Good morning.
Let's get started. This is a continuation from last week, from our half day where we had a bunch of students come in and give us feedback on what makes an awesome exhibition, an engaging exhibition for every student. We're going to use today to now share those plans with each other, get a little bit of feedback from each other, while also in the process me demonstrating to you kind of the critique process I use in my classroom. So you may get something out of it, you never know. There will be some time, if you don't have an exhibition plan right now, to just get your stuff together, so everyone will have something to share. Are there any questions before we start preparing this work? It's going to be quick, it's going to be intense. So you have 10 minutes right now to get prepped. Go! Let's go! Go!
The teachers have autonomy over the projects that they develop, but they don't do that in isolation. They do that collectively. For all of the collaboration that we do, you have to carve out time to do that. And so it's really built into our school day. And that time is really important. I don't think that you can do this kind of work without creating structures and carving out time for teachers to collaborate with each other.
What do you want for your layout?
This is what I have from Sealy. This is the layout that they have so far. That's what she sent to me yesterday. So then these two hanging things, they wanted hanging right here in between things. But I was saying, like, that's what we were talking about, the traffic.
Well, my passion is design and public space. I believe really strongly in the fact that all people should have access to good design. So whenever I'm designing a project for my students, I'm thinking about how can they have access to experiences where they build their design skills, but then offer that skill set to the community. So the project that we have right now is the revision project. And so when John and I were designing it, we were thinking about how might we be able to train the students in the world of design and architecture to do projects with our students that have a real impact in the community in Chula Vista that's centered on design.
Which pieces of this are you thinking about are going to be in the public art part?
I'm looking for ideas of kind of like which stencils to use, like kind of what will look nice and what will represent City Heights in order to put on the wall. So, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
So, because we want to have it like represent the community that lives there.
Yeah.
We don't want to just put random stencils up.
With the exception of this year, all my other projects happen from stumbling upon a museum, from a book that I read. If there's an election coming up, if there's a big topic in the news that I know students would get really excited by. The first question I ask myself, though, is would I be interested in spending 4 months on this topic? Because if the answer to that question is no for me, I think it's going to be really hard for me to motivate and engage my students. Teachers need to be able to design the curriculum that they're delivering, not just being people who are delivering curriculum that's handed to them by somebody else. Students are really intuitive. If you don't have the passion for what you're doing, they pick up on that really quickly and won't necessarily go along with you on the journey through the learning.
And then the last team I had a question about was Cuppets. How'd that meeting go with their slides?
It went well, yeah. The slides are in a much better shape. He has some more work to do around like how to present it in a more, because Alan wants it in more like a playful manner and less less professional, like less like business professional.
But how it matches like the look of the brand?
Yeah, exactly. So I just kind of gave some direct feedback on how to do that, and then I showed him some other slides, and we just worked on like branding of the slides themselves. So I think he's gonna work on another draft of them. And then I think another part of what I try to do with project-based learning and thinking through the different projects that I do is I collaborate a lot with different people and try and bounce ideas off of different folks that I know, either at the school or experts out in the community.
Do you want surfaces to display your drawings? You don't want your drawings hanging?
Well, I feel that if we hang the drawings, it's going to be a lot of things hanging from the ceiling.
The way that I develop personalization into my classroom is I have discussions with the students. I talk to them about what is it that you want to do in my classroom. A lot of students love the hand building, and a lot of them love doing the design work. Some of them not so much. As we start to kind of get to know each other in the beginning of the semester, I'll adjust the assignments and I'll adjust the work so that they're actually working on something that's really sort of leveraging their skills. I have a couple of students who are in management positions, so they're not quite as interested in the actual design of the projects as they are in actually helping to manage.
So what do you need from the Third Avenue group for the website? Are we going to have anything on there?
I took it off.
You took Third Avenue off?
No, I took it off, but I'm putting it under projects. I don't know exactly what you need.
What do you have for all the other groups? So what do we need to provide for you, like so that we match the layout of the other projects?
Because of the nature of project-based learning, I have been able to incorporate a lot of social work into the projects that we do. A perfect example of that is a revision project. One of our founding principles is that we want to democratize through design.
We can look more into
like what's already been written up and like what's on the website and stuff, so we can mimic how she wrote it to display.
The management team is kind of like the group of students that are in charge of knowing what's going on in all the projects. We're the management team, so we manage the revision project as a company, as an organization. I'm the business operations and office manager. My main job is to make sure that all the groups have whatever tools they need to be successful, reaching out to potential funders. So if people would like to make donations to the revision project, I'm kind of like the one that they would speak to.
Rafi is our business and operations manager of the revision project, and Madison is a client relations specialist, but also is project managing this specific project.
Okay.
I'll let them kind of take you through the various slides that they have for you a bit.
We try to focus our work on clients that are change makers, social innovators, entrepreneurs, people that maybe deserve everybody deserves access to high-quality design, but maybe organizations, institutions, individuals that, because of budget or funding, don't have the opportunity to pay somebody for great design, and that's where we want to come in. We want to help them have access to high-quality design at free of cost. Project-based learning is completely different from traditional schooling. Since I didn't come from high-tech middle, I did come from a traditional public school and then transferred freshman year to high-tech high. It was a really, really difficult challenge because in public school, it's the workload that's really difficult, right? You have a lot of homework, you need to write all these essays, you need to work on your notes, you need to review your quiz for English class. The nature of project-based learning requires a time commitment in a very different sense. So projects require thought, projects require effort, projects require care, projects require iterations, projects require critique. And those are all things that you don't get at a traditional public school, that I didn't get at a traditional public school, that are key to what we do as successful students at high-tech high. So just really quickly, once again, we're all seniors here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to interrupt us during the tour. This is gonna be really casual, really quick, and then we'll have more in-depth inside the classroom. The design of the school was made so that freshmen are farthest away from the entrance, seniors are closest, the idea being that as you progress through the grades, you get closer and closer to freedom. Student ambassadors are the high-tech high students that are responsible for giving tours and hosting info sessions for incoming students, so people that may be coming to high-tech high freshman year, but also visitors from all over the world. I think it's the best part about being a student ambassador. You're reminded of all the little things that make high-tech high so special. And it makes me really, really proud because I get to brag about all the projects that I've done, but I also get to brag about all the projects that my colleagues have done. That makes being a student ambassador for high-tech high very rewarding. High-tech high's most fundamental principle is based on equity. And we genuinely don't believe that AP classes or IB classes are equitable. What that means is that everybody has the same opportunity to succeed. Because I really am thankful for what high-tech high has done for me, I don't think that I would be the student or the person that I am without high-tech high Chula Vista. I try to give back sort of in that sense through our projects. I want to make things that high-tech high feels proud going to professionals, going to any other part in the state, country, or world and saying, this is what our students are doing, because that's the least that I can do for what it did for me.
Another thing I want you to think about, words like this. It says, the thing that they want and that they need and want the most is money. Words like this, you want to kind of stay away from, right? So sophistication in words. Because it's an op-ed, we don't only have up to 750 words that we can use. We want to be very precise in the word and what we're using and use sophisticated language. So you want to watch out for this. Yeah.
So could you say like in addition or like in short or something?
That's perfect. If you're using the signal words, that's exactly what you want to do. Take those and use that rather than like, I will tell you I think this is.
The grading system is something that our schools, that each individual school is free to kind of experiment with and try different things. So in some of our classes or on some of our teams, the teachers are experimenting with not giving grades. We do have some tests. We don't have as many as traditional schools. We think that, tests are just one way of measuring how much a student has learned. It's usually not the best way, but we look at the work that our students are doing. We look at the project work. It's one of the reasons that we make our students' work public and that's essential to what we do. And when we're exhibiting the project work and when we're looking at it, we're analyzing the work. We're reflecting on our own practice too as project designers.
So here's the photos from the week. What is one highlight from last week related to your project for Festival del Sol? So we're gonna whip around real quick because we don't know what everyone's doing. So just like one highlight, mine would be my students finished writing their invitation letters and I got to mail them and I got to read all of them and they were awesome. And so I'm excited about our audience.
My group, we have like almost 60 pages in our book. And we have to make 200 pages.
Oh, wow. 60 pages, though, that's a huge accomplishment.
The editing team in our project has already fully edited 2 segments, which is really cool.
I think that what we look at in terms of students, there are a couple outcomes that we're looking for. I think one, we are trying to be a school where all students who enter through our doors have the opportunity to go to a 4-year university. And so at some high schools, when students come in, they're sort of funneled into a vocational track or they're funneled into an academic track. Here, we have something called common intellectual mission, which means that no matter who you are, when you walk through the door, you are put into the classes that will prepare you in those 4 years to be ready for university and have all the credits that you need to apply to 4-year school. So that's one piece that we look at in terms of outcomes. But I would say the other core piece of what we really look at is our students' growth over time. And for each student, that growth might look different. That's why the way that we assess is really through dialogue. I think what's most important to us are the presentations of learning that we have at the end of each semester, where students have to be able to get up in front of an audience and be able to speak publicly and provide evidence of how they have grown over the course of their semester, what work they have created, what they're proud of and what they're not proud of, as well as what areas they still need to grow in over time. And so I think that for us, what's most important to us is that one-on-one assessment, is being able to really look at each student, where have they come from in terms of their journey, and then where are they still headed.
We're working on tiny homes. So the project is where the kids interview artists. There's 14 of them. They specifically design the tiny home for the artist's needs, and then we're building these houses.
Hold it now, don't just hold it steady. I'm only going to tap it. I'll tap it hard. When I became an architect, I never dreamed I was going to be doing community built. So when I went over to High Tech High, just happened to arbitrarily sit down with Regina, and we had lunch together, and she talked about this house project, and I said, gee, that sounds like community involvement. And so we started talking. They joined us to build a park over here, a community-built park, and then I started working with them, you know, essentially full-time in September.
First we'll have just two of you grab one. They're gonna come all the way over. Then Adam and Enrique, you'll grab the next one and stand right next to them.
My boyfriend and I actually have thought about living in a tiny home, because when I realized that I wanted to go into teaching instead of engineering, I realized I was also going to make a lot less money. So I went to this thing called the Tiny House Conference, and I learned that it's actually not that complicated. And I thought, well, now I'm teaching at this school, maybe I could try to build tiny homes with my students, and that way we can all kind of learn together. So we revealed our project idea to the kids on the first day of school, and they built these little tiny models. And from the model, we then had them learn the skills that it takes to the science behind building a home, and then the idea of why would you want to live in a tiny home in the first place, because they are so small. And then we've since done so many different things, where at one point I built an entire full-scale tiny house model with them just out of cardboard. So my room was just transformed into cardboard everywhere. And since then, I would say a lot of them have decided that they could probably live in a tiny house, which I think is a pretty special feeling, because once you realize that you don't need this like mansion that the US a lot of the time tells you you should probably want to have, then you realize you don't need to have a job that is going to make you hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're okay with doing something that you're more passionate about because you're not going to be stressed out about finances.
We take these out because what happens is you can start tripping over these. If you're carrying that wooden stuff, you're going to trip over it. So that's why we need to completely clear these out and cut them all the way down, okay?
We're actually using STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So the science part of it is actually like all the forces that are applied to the houses that we had to learn before we actually start to build it, because we have to realize how the wall is gonna stay up and how, if it's gonna fall or not. And then the technology part is when we did our Kickstarter, because we had to use the computer a lot and we made videos, so that helped with our like editing skills. And the mathematics part was all the calculations that we had to do to figure out how big our tiny homes were gonna be. And then we added the A, which is, so it would be STEAM, and the A is for the art, because we're doing this for the artists, and we're also like applying how we create the house, that's also art, because art is all around you.
The purpose of this consultancy is to take a look at some of the work that Regina has brought to us from her students. She'll be bringing to us a question that she has about the work, and we're going to try to help her answer that question through this protocol. So Regina, if you will, please.
So this is the part that they're doing in art class. They are making to-scale architectural models of the tiny homes that they designed to each artist. And this is the piece that I'm adding to it. So we've been studying electricity because I realized that electricity is something that I can't do with the tiny house project because I don't want them to get electrocuted. So I wanted them to still understand electricity. So my goal is that they light up their tiny house kind of in these images that I've been showing them. So eventually they'll be working with yellow lights and they'll put them in the rooms of their house, and this is exactly what it's going to look like. I would say each teacher does their own level, so I can only speak mostly for my class. But for me, because I've decided that I really want them to feel prepared for college, I make sure that I provide enough information that is going to make them feel okay for all the physics that they're supposed to cover in a normal classroom. Plus, I want to make sure that they're doing the project that we've started on, which is making this house. So I've had them taking, in fact, I've had them taking a college level test already, and they've actually done quite well on it. We do practices where they take quizzes from like senior level physics classes, and just to see where they are, where they would place. And because I always like to push them to the next level, I challenge them in lots of different ways so that they can feel confident. And so when anyone asks them, why do you think you can build a house? You're only 14. They say, why shouldn't I be able to build a house? I'm 14.
Deep down, why do you feel like this is a good project for you and your classmates?
Because it's showing a community that no matter how young we are, that even ninth graders can build homes that make a difference for the community.
If the kids do things for the community and get to know the community, meet with community members, then have a more of a caring attitude for the neighborhood. And it begins with your neighborhood, and then maybe you care about the world. And then you can understand about the environment. So it's all about sensitivity to the environment that you live in.
I want to know what's been going on. So you guys talk to each other, and then I want to hear, like, what's a fun moment? And it could be like, okay, so talk about that. What are some things that you guys were doing?
For the tiny home project in the 9th grade, we have 54 students who are working on this as a collaborative project. So it's a little bit challenging to have 54 students on a build site. So we've kind of negotiated with the people that we're working with and the architects, and they've helped us divide the team up a little bit and really have useful things that they're doing down at the build site. So half of the students are going to be down there starting to build the jigs, and then the other half are going to be with me in the classroom because we're working on completing the tiny house book. And that book is actually showcasing the 14 lives of the artists and their life work, what inspires them as artists, their process. Also, the drawings that the students are doing for their designs are also going to be a part of the book. So that's kind of what's going to be inside of the classroom happening while the other students are off-site.
Do you think that we should redo our furniture or just keep the old ones?
The humanities portion of the project, we are making a book about the artist's stories, and so the articles are about the artist's lives and going into like their personal details of like their inspiration and their childhoods, what type of art they work with, and some people decided to write a whole article just about one of their specific pieces and like the symbolism behind that piece of art.
Every piece of furniture that you create, know that someone is going to be looking at that. Because like, how many of you have ever had a dollhouse? You have a dollhouse? Okay, when you look inside of the dollhouse, like what is it that you're looking at? The furniture, because it's so cute, right? You don't want to take away from like your model, because you guys have a beautiful model and this really cool thing going on, but you also, you know, you need to make sure that it looks really cool, because people want to see like, what would it be like if I lived inside of here, right? So like pretend like you're making a dollhouse.
It's very interesting to be in a room that is surrounded by glass. Giving students liberty, but also having the freedom as a teacher can be daunting, but at the same time, there are little structures that are in place that sort of like keep the students sort of aware of their liberty and aware of their responsibilities and aware of their freedom that they have. I mean, it's not perfect all of the time. It's definitely not always, you know, the students, I know when I turn my back, I know that they're not always gonna be doing the right thing. But the interesting thing too is that like these glass walls sort of promote, sort of are ingrained in the students' heads that we are kind of on display. And so that kind of makes it bigger than themselves, and it makes it bigger than what the classroom is in terms of like what I'm doing. Even though it's awesome for a 9th grader to be able to like go outside and use a power tool and kind of have the freedom to do that, there is sort of the sense that like people are watching you, and it's not just people that are your teachers, but it's other people who are coming to our school. So that sort of kind of, I think, helps with that.
In the beginning of the year, my teaching partner, Kyle, and I take the first 2 weeks before students start to really start to develop our year. And so we sit down with each other, we look at all the Common Core standards, things that he needs to teach in science and math, and I look at all the standards and everything that I need to teach with history, reading, and writing. And then we start to pull out all the different strands that we want to teach our students and things that we feel like are valuable and that we need to make sure that at the end of this year, our students need to have these skills so that they can move on to 8th grade. So he's very passionate about video and teaching kids how to edit and how to create. And I'm very passionate around food and this idea of food justice and about what we're feeding kids right now. And then that's when the Meals and Muppets project was born. You want to sew it, then sew them in.
Yeah,
Just
that's
make
what
sure-
I was thinking.
Make sure that when
like-
you have it, there's at least about this much neck.
So
right?
you
Be
can
careful.
actually see them.
Yeah, but like plan it out, because if you sew it too much and then when you let go, then the neck looks like this and it looks like ET. Right? And then if you look at it, it's too high. So you want to make sure that you sew this and sew it and then measure it well.
Something that we really embody here is that we live our project. So if we're doing a project about healthy eating, we want to change our lifestyle based on that project. And it doesn't have to be a large change. It can be slight changes, like when you go shopping, maybe buy products that don't have high fructose corn syrup or things like that. It's just all the small changes that contribute to your lifestyle that really enhance your connection with the project. So by making those small changes, when you're working with the project, you really feel like you're part of it, like you're in the project.
Okay. Should we use black?
Is it plugged in?
No, because we're doing like the Velcro like right here. So we should just use the yellow.
I look at the curriculum that I have to teach for 7th grade, and I try and find the natural applications of that. Like, where is this used in the real world? One of the things that we were talking about is, in our geometry unit, is really around how 3-dimensional shapes are constructed from 2-dimensional shapes, and how you take dimensions and measurements off of them for things like surface area and volume, so that way they're forced to use that knowledge in order to create something that they want to do or make something that they want to make. Any questions before we get going?
I was wondering, because the beginning of, what do you call it?
of Japan, since they go to Japan and they use the ghost, I was wondering, do we have to do the same thing? Do we have to do the same thing? Because you know how they were traveling and like they move a lot. And I was wondering, do they have to do the same thing for Japan?
Yeah, we're gonna film that part so we're gonna get those like green screens separately, because there's also the scene that we got to get with in Larry's workshop. And in order to be able to get like composite the transition from that one to that one, we actually also have to shoot part of it on the green screen too. So we're probably gonna do that after we finish the Africa, as we'll get all those like additional little cuts that we need, and then we'll film the part in here. I've always had a big interest with film. I really love it. One of the first major projects I did here at the school involved, I didn't know anything about film at the time. I hadn't edited anything. I'd never actually shot anything, never used lights or audio equipment or anything. But I told the kids, I want to make an experience for our audience of what it would look like if you were to shrink down and travel through a cell. And so that was sort of like this birth that kind of brought me in there. And I learned so much that year, but I really learned along with the kids doing that.
When Angel sang, because someone has blah, 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 your puppet was just like sitting there. Make sure you can like nod and stuff. Like he's breathing or nodding and stuff.
Y'all ready?
Yeah. Quiet on the set.
Quiet on the set.
And action.
Whoa!
Where are we? I'm not sure. But I think we're in Africa.
The goal for our students now is like, how do we teach our 5-year-old buddies about eating and healthy living and physical education through the use of these Muppets?
Find a spot to read with your buddy or walk in, okay?
Our kinder buddies are located over on the elementary side downstairs, and we all have our own buddies. Every Friday we go down with the kinder buddies and we read with them or do activities with them. And we really want to, every time we go down, we try and increase our bond with them to make more connections. And when we read, we really want to help them understand, to pronounce the words, follow through the book smoothly, see if they'll understand some basic sight words, things like that, just to get them interested in the book.
Almost every Friday afternoon, we come out to our farm area and just tend to the farm. Part of our Meals and Muppets project, it's this idea about studying food and food justice and really looking at where our food is coming from. Understanding that if we have local control of our own food, we know that all of our food is organic, there isn't any pesticides on our food. So kids are understanding that this is another option for them. Instead of going out and buying food out somewhere, they can start their own garden. And we're mimicking that through our project here, where kids can take care of their own garden here, take care of the food, take care of the plants, and then we're gonna harvest it and then feed ourselves with this. And we're starting that through these kids, through their experiences, and then they'll use their experiences to talk to the right adults so that we can make that positive change.
Hiring great teachers to work here is the most important part of my job, and we go through a pretty extensive process. We are the first school environment to have a graduate school of education fully embedded in our context. And we founded our graduate school in part because I think that we were finding that to be successful here, teachers needed a certain kind of training, a certain sort of experience, and university credentialing programs tend to be quite traditional in the practices that they promote.
I was teaching in Boston. I was teaching middle school science. And I was getting a little frustrated with the system. I felt like there had to be a better way of doing things for kids so that all kids were able to succeed. I had heard about High Tech High before because I was interested in project-based learning, and I had used some of their materials in my classes. So I applied to the program hoping to get a different perspective on education, figure out some different ways to do education in a way that was better for students. I think an innovative school is one that is willing to change and adapt to meet the needs of their students. Innovative schools are always looking at data. They're asking their students, their parents, the teachers, what they think is best for students, and they're willing to change and adapt to what the students need.
personalization design principle is really just about knowing our kids well. We're very intentional about having a diverse student body. We have to differentiate our instruction and really personalize instruction for all of our students' needs.
I think that part of the mission of High Tech High is to increase the number of students of color as well as women in the sciences, right? And so I think that the reason we have teachers who are coding with students and building drones and really, again, integrating the hands and the mind is that we really want more students to be engaged by the sciences and then go into those career fields.
Anything you want to talk about? Like you know, you're still staying active, staying fit, keeping healthy?
I'm actually, our politics club just did their nominations for, like, the Democratic Club and the Republican Club nominated their candidates for, like, a mock presidential election, and I'm the Democratic nomination for president. And I'm like, that's what I'm nervous about, that it's going to start to interfere with, like, just athletics.
Okay.
Every Tuesday, advisors have check-ins where they'll ask you about your grades and they'll ask you about your classes. So they'll say, oh, you have a B in English when you used to have an A. What's going on? And they'll try to figure out why your grades are going down. Or if you failed a test, they're gonna ask you, why did you fail that test? Why didn't you study? When they start asking you those questions, if you want them to help you with your classwork, that's when you would say, hey, advisor, when can we meet after school? I need a lot of help with my English essay. Or I'm really confused about how such math works.
We also personalize the way that we respond to students when they make bad choices, you know? I think we all remember what we were like when we were that age. You're going through a lot when you're becoming an adult. We want to create learning experiences from those moments, and so we even personalize our approach to discipline. It's really hard work to do that, but it's a challenge that we embrace. If you're going to bring a diverse group of kids together, you have to differentiate and personalize how you work with them.
My hope is to really give you an overview of the school and what it is that we're all about. And at the very end, we'll leave some time to answer questions because we want to make sure that you leave here tonight really with all of your questions answered so you can make the best decision possible. My goal is really just to provide you with the best information possible so that you can make the best choice for your individual child.
Me and Rafa's dad, we did research for all of them about which schools we wanted them to go. We went to one of the presentations of High Tech High, and we knew that it was different, that it was project-based. So when we went to the presentation, we had a better idea of what that meant. And it was very different to what I grew up with. And that's what really made us decide that they were gonna be in High Tech High. He's very hardworking, he's very curious, so it fit very well into his personality. The method is different in the other public schools. It was more reading, more memorizing than just books. The fact that here was hands-on was a different experience, and he really liked it.
Whenever I feel stressed out, I speak with my friends over Skype. I know that they'll understand how I feel, and now when I speak with them, I know that there's other people that feel the same way that I feel. So it calms me down a lot more. And then I'll like hang out with them over Skype, and then and then after I speak with them, I'll go back to the work and I'll feel a lot more enthusiastic.
Hemos notado que aquí él siente mucha confianza en los maestros. Tiene la capacidad de memorizar las cosas, pero nunca lo habíamos visto, por ejemplo, presentando, parándose frente de muchos del grupo y hablar con tanta facilidad, porque a nosotros como papás nos sorprende. Cada vez que vengo yo aquí o mi esposo venimos a verlo en sus presentaciones que tiene, cada vez nos sorprende porque no esperamos, la verdad, lo que él... esa confianza que tiene de pararse, de expresarse y de sentirse parte del grupo es así como... Académicamente también ahora sí que vemos que ha aprendido pues bastante o más rápido, no sé, como que siento capta más rápido las cosas. Ok, la idea de trabajar con los proyectos me gusta porque no nada más lo desarrollan aquí en clase, sino que lo llevan afuera a desarrollarlo con la comunidad, a llevarlo afuera, lo que están aprendiendo aquí en el salón. Por eso me gusta y el trabajo de equipo, el que no hay competencia, sino que todos se ayudan.
A High-Tech High, o que mais me chamou a atenção é que a educação baseada em projetos lá, todo mundo na escola acredita muito nesse método. Eles acreditam porque realmente tem resultado, porque realmente os alunos aprendem e se engajam a partir desse método.
Exhibition. This is the layout you have so far, right?
Yeah.
A segunda coisa que mais me chamou a atenção é a qualidade do corpo docente e dos gestores, no sentido de como eles acompanham tudo, assim, como os diretores da escola acompanham cada projeto, conversam com todos os professores regularmente. Eles trabalham em professores em dupla lá. Essa dupla tem uma afinidade incrível e eles trocam muito e eles se ajudam muito. A formação dos professores é um elemento crítico para a inovação. Na verdade, é um problema também, porque no mundo inteiro ainda existem poucas escolas de formação de professores que levam em conta a inovação na formação. Então, a gente espera que os professores sejam um elemento-chave da inovação, espera que eles entendam os alunos do século XXI, que eles tenham um novo papel, que é um papel de designer de currículo, um papel de mediador, um papel de tutor, que muda completamente o papel que eles tinham antigamente, mas a gente usa métodos tradicionais para formar o professor e depois se espera que o professor inove. Então, a primeira coisa que a gente teria que mudar, na verdade, é mudar a formação, é usar esses métodos inovadores, botar o professor em contato com tecnologia, botar o professor em contato com atividades mais práticas, durante a sua formação.
I think this place is pretty magical. I think that this place gives a lot of students experiences and opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise in other places. I think students still have a really strong association with school being in a room at a desk with someone lecturing to them. And I think a dream school would be a great place for students to not associate school with any of that, but that's actually them out in the field, being out in the world, and doing great projects that they feel they're empowered by and that they feel are giving back to the community.
I believe the best thing about this school, they give you a lot of freedom. You're allowed to come up with your own ideas. Other schools, my experience, I wasn't allowed to do anything.
I think what we are trying to do is create people who can communicate well, who can solve creative problems, who can innovate. I want people who are passionate about the work that they do. And I think we can only really get at that if we have schools that are set up to allow students to explore what those ideas are, to make mistakes and to fail. But I think in order for us to have that populace that we want to have in the world today, those are the types of things we need.
When I leave this school, I'm going to take with me the large skill of confidence that I learned here in public speaking and sharing my thoughts out loud. And that's something that I really want to take into high school and college and when I get a job. And I might even pursue the career of public speaking when I'm older.
If you want students to be innovators, you have to give them opportunities to innovate. I think young children are natural innovators. I think that it's when we become older that we start to lose some of that. What we try to do is to make sure they continue having opportunities to do that. It's what comes natural to them.
High-Tech High definitely motivates us to disagree because what our system is, it helps every student find their voice. And no two voices are ever alike. I love this school. I love what we stand for. I genuinely believe that what we are doing is world class. And I want to share that with as many people as I possibly can all the time.
In some ways, there's this question of what education system is going to make students most likely to succeed in the future. We don't know that, right? Because it's a changing economy right now. There are all these new technologies that are coming to the fore that are taking away a lot of the old jobs that just required a lot of kind of rote memorization and routinization, right? But we don't necessarily know right now which model is ultimately going to be the best in terms of helping helping students to thrive in the future, right? I would say that in my dream school, the doing is really matched by like an intellectual fire. That's really important to me. Like one question I've been thinking a lot about recently and have been talking to my teachers about is how do we help our students really bring the best of themselves to every moment? And so we want our students to be doing these amazing big things, but on a moment by moment basis, we also really want their minds really fired up and be kind of making all these connections. So I think it's really a balance of those different things.
Oh, we do projects, we critique, we have a whole lot of fun. Solving things together, yes, it can be done. We are from high tech. I said from high tech. High tech elementary school. Somos de high tech. Digo de high tech. Donde somos lo mejor de lo mejor. Somos de high tech. Digo de high tech. Escuela de la comunidad.
Give yourselves a big round of applause.
Uma parceria SESI, uma iniciativa da CNI, Confederação Nacional da Indústria.